Please stay with us. I am also now joined by Mr. Nadir Gul Barech, who is Chief Operating Officer, Pakistan Poverty Alleviation Fund. Mr. Nadir Gul, thank you very much for your time at Fault Lines. So when we talk about this phenomenon, how do you see this one, particularly as far as the entire nook and the corner of the country has been hit by massive floods, never seen before in the history of Pakistan, as many experts have said. These are much bigger in scale as compared to that of the 2010 floods even.
Thank you very much for providing me this opportunity. I agree with you. This flood is much bigger than we have seen in our life during the last 4 decades or 5 decades. 2010 flood, if you just analyze, it hit 20% area of the country. Like in Balochistan, only 12 districts were affected in 2010. But this time, almost 30 districts have been affected in Balochistan, and overall more than 100 districts have been hit across the country in all 4 provinces. So it's really a gigantic disaster as far as the flash flood are concerned. And I think I would also mention that it's much beyond the capacity of government, particularly the resources required to rehabilitate. As you know, that more than 140 dams have been hit by this, and they have been damaged. More than 3,000 kilometer roads have been washed out. More than 600,000 houses, shelter have been completely wiped out of the area. So it's really a gigantic disaster that we need to look at, and I think everyone has to join hands, both within Pakistan. Everybody has to contribute, and also I think you are well aware that Pakistan is not much contributor to carbon emission. We only contribute 0.9% of the carbon emission across the world. But as far as the disasters are concerned, be that flash flood or earthquake or drought, we are 8th country hit by the effect of climate change. So I think it's also responsibility of the international community to contribute significantly in this disaster.
Okay, when we associate this particular phenomenon that is happening in Pakistan right now, causing such an immense damage, is it necessary that we associate it with the climatic change that is happening in the region, or is it because of the mismanagement over the years as well? Because in many research papers and many experts are of the view that annually Pakistan loses a huge amount of water, which should naturally not be lost, because if there were dams in place, so such a massive amount of water could have been reserved. What do you say?
Well, I think overall effects are of climate change, I would say, because these rains, torrential rains, they are much heavier, like more than 87% of normal in some provinces. So the climate change effect cannot be ruled out in this discussion. But I think I would also agree with you that we should have built more dams to conserve this water, to preserve this water, because we are also, unfortunately, there are areas where you confront flood at one time, and second time you confront severe drought. So I think we need to conserve every drop of water for longer period, and also I think we need to invest in integrated natural resource management. Like I appreciate government of Pakistan also for this 10 billion tsunami tree. It's a great contribution, I think, and it will have impact on reducing the effect of drought and flash floods in the future. But I think much more needs to be done in order to conserve water. So construction of dams, and also construction of flood protection walls. I think that's very important, because many areas, like we have seen in 2010, they were washed out. Now in 2022, they are again washed out. So we have to work out strategies for short-term, medium-term, and long-term. Secondly, I think we did not learn much lesson from 2010 flood. We have constructed houses on the same river beds and on the ways where water crosses. And also we did not raise the level of houses. Like, I have been to Sindh just last week. I have been to Balochistan. What I have seen in 2010, I have seen it again, that people, at the end of the day, their place of living after the flood hit area, those are roads or the beds of canal. So I think that, which are 4 or 5 feet higher than the ground. So I think we need to do a planning that this time when we start, rebuilding, reconstruction of houses, I think we need to raise from ground level at least 4 to 5 feet from ground level. So I think we need to take certain measures to ensure that we don't.
This is a very important and interesting point that you have raised, that we haven't learned the lessons from the last deluge back in 2010. Let's talk to Mr. Khalil Runja. So, Mr. Runja, as Mr. Nadir Gul has just mentioned, that Pakistan hasn't learned the lessons from the last deluge back in 2010, and the people are still making the encroachments. Many people have lost their properties and also come in the harm's way just because they went on to construct things in the rivers or the streams ways. Do you agree with this? And also, when we talk about the climate change impacts in particular on Pakistan, do you think this phenomenon necessarily has to deal with the climate change impact on Pakistan and has nothing or lesser to do with the mismanagement or lesser construction of the dams so that we could conserve water in a better way? Mr. Runja, can you hear me, please? I think, unfortunately, we have lost the connection with Mr. Runja. Let's go to Mr. Rind. Mr. Rind, what's your say on this particular thing? When we talk about climate change and the impacts on Pakistan, rather, if we would have constructed much bigger dams and more dams across the country, so these floods could have been avoided and the water could have been better managed and conserved.
I agree with you, and as far as Balochistan is concerned, I think 10 to 15 years back, federal government started a project, 100 dams project, which is called here in Balochistan as 100 dams, the small dams project. But the thing is, the corruption ratio which is going on in Balochistan from last decades, last 2 to 3 decades, contractor association's representative gives a video, and he clearly said, when we get all the funds, we will we will make good dams and good buildings. But because of the corruption ratio, they just get the 50% of the amount to make some dam. Because of that, in normal rains, we have seen Balochistan face that dam where there are many dams which flushed out in last 2 to 3 years. This year we have extraordinary rains which I have never seen. I have never heard from anyone to last 30 to 40 years we face this kind of situation. So this time there was an extraordinary situation, but with the climate change, the corruption is the biggest issue of Balochistan.
So that's the case of Balochistan. It could be that case according to your view, but what about the rest of the country, other 3 provinces?
Other 3 provinces, we have I wish to say, maybe someone agree with it or differ with it, Kalabagh Dam. We are not in a position to make all the provinces to come on one page and make some dam. We every time bigger or mega projects, we make them controversial. When we make biggest issues and biggest mega projects controversial, they become liability for the country, not for the profit of the country.
That is one case of its kind, because there could have been a massive displacement of people, the natives from that particular area. That is the one aspect, specifically if we talk about the Kalabagh Dam, but there could be other much bigger or the alternate options to that one as well.
For that, you always need, for biggest dams, you need the finances. And right now, what is the economical situation of Pakistan? We are not in a position to build the biggest dams in this economical situation, I think, and I believe. We will try, but until or unless our economy will be not good, how can we invest in biggest dams? So we have a right now option as the small and the medium dams in the different provinces, even in Balochistan. If there is some less corruption, so these dams can preserve too much water, which are 100 dams project that was tremendous for Balochistan and the need and the requirement for Balochistan. But because of corruption, we have lost all that project.
Beg your pardon for the interruption. When you talk about the lack of the will or the kind of rampant corruption that you just mentioned, what about the encroachments, the people themselves making constructions in the harm's way? And when such phenomenal incessant rain happens once in 10 years, let's say, So they are naturally in the harm's way, and they will definitely be brought down because of these massive deluge that hit once in 10 years, let's say.
As far as Balochistan concerned, we have a one biggest metropolitan city, that is Quetta. We have faced the encroachment issue all over the Balochistan in just Quetta. Nothing, the rest of Balochistan have no encroachment issue. But the issue is we have never worked on the maintenance of the bridges and the national highways. Because of that, right now the district Las Velas Tehsil hub is disconnected with Karachi. That bridge was in a miserable condition from years, but not a single elected representative allocated fund for that maintenance of that bridge. That is the completely mismanagement by the National Highway, Provincial Communication and Works Department. Right now, when I'm talking to you, where Nadir Gul mentioned you, 1,500 kilometers highways are washed out in these recent floods. But Balochistan's Provincial Minister Communication and Works is not present in Balochistan right now. He's on a world tour. So this is our interest in Balochistan.
So does this raise a question on the quality of the material that is also used in the road links which connect the major cities in the country?
I told you which bridge can connect, District Las Velas Tehsil hub with Karachi. That was demolished in recent floods and rains. That was in a miserable condition from years. Not it happened suddenly or in a day or in 2 or 3 days.
That
2
was
years
for continuous and regular maintenance of the infrastructure as well. So let's talk to Mr. Nadir Gul. So what your organization, the Pakistan Poverty Alleviation Fund, doing at this moment in time to provide relief to the flood affected people, not only in a specific particular province but across Pakistan, and are you also satisfied with the relief and the rescue activities which are undertaken by the authorities?
Well, Pakistan Poverty Alleviation Fund has in past also in 2005 earthquake, in 2010 flood, and then again in 2013 there was flood, in COVID. We have always supported our communities. In this flood, we just started our operation with 250 million rupees resources from our own, and we are covering 12 districts across country, 4 districts in Sindh, 4 Balochistan, 2 KPK and 2 Punjab. So we are targeting some 81,000 families, more than 500,000 people, and the relief which is required currently, as you know, it's food, shelter, water, sanitation, hygiene kits, and also the livestock medication and vaccination. So these are urgent priorities in flood affected areas. I have been to Sindh, I have been to Balochistan. I think there are problems in delivering flood relief items to the affectees, because mostly in these last 1 month, several times, roads have been blocked. Balochistan has been completely cut off. In Sindh, some areas they were inundated, so access was an issue. So we have tried to reach out to those areas, but as far as overall efforts of relief are concerned, I think I'll also appreciate Pakistan Army, the law enforcement agencies, administration, that along with the rescue, they are also helping these people, they are delivering relief. But I think the needs are tremendous. It's a huge catastrophe, and I think it requires a lot of resources. And still, areas are cut, the access issue still prevails in some areas. So a lot of efforts need to be done to provide relief to these people. Secondly, Alhamdulillah, these rains have stopped now. So it's now time, people will start, constructing houses where water has flushed out. So early recovery has to overlap with the relief now. So it's a gigantic catastrophe, but the resources are quite meager. We have seen even the international community till yesterday only $500 million were committed by a humanitarian community, by World Bank and by others. But that's not significant. It requires billions of dollars to rehabilitate, infrastructure, construction of more than 600,000 houses for poor people. And again, look at the agriculture and livestock. So a lot of damages have been done. So that would require a lot of resources, infrastructure for revitalizing agriculture in those areas, providing support for seed fertilizer so that at least the next
Right.
season could be caught.
Right, beg your pardon for the interruption. Mr. Nadir Gul, we are now joined